Welcome to the dance. I'm going to be modifying a few things since I'm not going to be bending this knee very much. So you can also adapt what I'm doing in a way that you're more comfortable doing it in your own way, modifying. And so I will run us through a choreography of sorts, which includes the supine work we did this morning, as well as some prone work that we'll do this afternoon. So you're going to get it all, and we'll probably take a break, cut halfway, and kind of stitch the videos together later. Okay. So I'm going to start, normally I would be kneeling in Thunderbolt or Vajrasana. I'm going to start in a half kneeling position, which is more comfortable for me. And we'll begin by palming along the inner edges of the feet as a way to create a rhythm, as well as for me to simply initiate contact and connection, to plug in to myself, to how I feel, and through this connection, feel Catherine and start to appreciate her natural flexibility, the extent to which she feels receptive to the offering. Okay. Straight arms, body weight. And use the heel of your hand to palm along the instep of the foot. As a counter pose, support the tops of the feet, lift the heels up momentarily so that you have a moment to let the Achilles heel shorten so that we don't overstretch that part. Lower the heels down, turn the toes in, and then simply lay one foot on top of the other and gently stretch the tops of the feet. And you can do the same with the opposite foot on top, a gentle stretch, a pronation of the feet. Okay. We were working on a technique from this position, so we'll start here. So I have a shy of 90-degree angle, and I'm going to move the legs to one side and rest it, in this case, on my right thigh. And I'll step my left foot across so I can lock the back of my heel and my Achilles heel at the top of cat's thigh. I want to get a good lock, so I might even step my back foot even further back so I lock the thigh and fix a point, which will be like a lever and a pivot point. And I simply step my back foot forward in a semicircle so that I don't need my hands to support the legs. The lower that cat's legs go, the more that we get a twist. If I keep them high and just keep walking forward, she's going to get a big stretch and lengthening along the outer hip, along the lower back, and so forth. So it's a nice way to simply start playing with connecting our bodies together. So you can see I start further back so that her legs are shy of 90. I lock my first leg into position as the pivot point, and I step my back foot around like a semicircle, and her body wants to come with me, like so. Good girl. And if you're in this position, it makes so much sense to come down onto one knee. And you have a very common position we use, supported position for the legs, especially for people who might have tight hamstrings or low back pain when their legs are straight along the ground. Very, again, sort of common technique that we do is to palm along the pec minor, front of the shoulder with an open palm, and here we'll add little circles. So as I circle my hips, I keep my hands fixed at the front of the shoulder, and I let my weight shift from my right hand to my left hand, and so forth. And since I have a nice angle to work the opposite shoulder, what I'll do is turn cat's head to one side and lock these magic four fingers, your ring finger, your middle finger, over the top of the shoulder. Once I'm locked in, I just lean back. I keep my arms straight, and I attempt as best I can to resist picking her up off the ground I'm just leaning straight back so I get that shoulder well between the neck and shoulders. Okay. Would be nice to switch sides. Soft palm on the forehead. Lock and lean. Here I can go further back. I'm sitting on my heel. And again, arms straight. And I'm using my body weight to lean back. There are times when I see people want to lift the shoulder off the ground. It's different. And here, in this case, we're really looking for moving the point between the neck and shoulder towards the opposite hip. So there's no lifting. Okay, like that. Coming back up to standing, I can straighten one leg, and then I will sit underneath her opposite leg, and you can see my legs are wide, and I'll simply start to palm along the inner thigh, and I'm rocking her knee with my right hand. So this is doing the movement. It's actually moving the bone of the thigh, and my left hand is following. Super simple, very effective way of sort of stepping into your, your relationship with your receiver. It's gentle, supportive. And then we're in a great position to move from here into a hamstring technique. So I place her foot in my hip crease. Rock, 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 rock. And I keep that foot in my hip crease as a position that allows me to keep her leg fixed in that same bent knee position. And I just take her thigh to the ground. Some people with less flexible hamstrings, you'll want to hook around the opposite hip to actually support them as you bring their thigh to the ground. Once the thigh is down, keep it down. Apply your body weight and think of yourself like the big cat walking. Big mama cat. Alternating pressure from one hand to the other. So good, right? Mm-hmm. So good. Okay, coming up. I'll bring the knee over the hip so that her leg is relaxed here. And then I switch, stepping my opposite leg across her midline. In this position, I'm going to hook her knee crease close to my knee on my thigh. So I want to make that natural fit. Right above my knee, I'm going to place her knee crease. No hands. From here, to take her into a twist, I walk my hands forward, I lean my hips forward, and I use my thigh to bring her into a twist. Once she's in, I can support, add a little bit of rocking. And then to come out, I place my hands once again, I lean my hips forward, and I go through like an arc. And I can even stay low so that I keep this contact point between the back of her knee and the top of my thigh. Just like that. This is another one of my favorite things to do. Just a little downward pressure on the top of the foot. Okay, I'm getting carried away. Russian dancer. When we come out of the Russian dancer, I'll slide her ankle to my hip crease. At the same time, there's all this space that opens. Think of happy baby on one side. The knee is wide relative to the torso. I could even do this. I could place a supportive forearm on the inner thigh, inner shin. And all that space allows me to step in like so. So with the foot in the hip crease, step in. I slide my leg back so I create space so I can lock the hip once again. Once the hip is locked, I lock it and I lean slightly forward. I keep the lock, back of my heel to the top of her thigh, and then maybe lean to the side. And I could lean all the way to the side and bring her knee towards the ground. Since she's already there, I simply leave her leg towards the ground. I step back. I come to a seated position with my legs perpendicular to Catherine's thigh. Her knee is going to be shy of 90 degrees, just slightly. And with her shin, I can wrap her shin and the top of her foot inside my shin. So this is my outside leg. I've got my foot in her knee crease. And then I'll adjust so that I'm close enough that when I straighten my inside leg, that it's firmly pressing the back of her thigh. Lock, and then I lean back. I've got one hand under the knee crease of the straight leg, the other hand wrapped over like a hook on the inner ankle. It's a very firm technique, very effective, very traditional. Pressure okay, Kat? It's not too much? Okay. It's on the edge. So this technique, if you go to the middle of the thigh, you can start there and then work around from there. You'll get the most bang for your buck at the middle of the thigh, the middle of the belly of the muscle. And then if we're happy with that, I slide my legs out. I want to see that Catherine's body is more or less aligned with her straight leg. So we've moved her hips a little bit, so I'm going to line up her straight leg with her torso. I line up her foot with her calf muscle, and then I slip forward for a blood stop at the inner thigh close to the groin. This is the moment where we practice entering a hot tub. Not just a hot tub, but a hot tub. And as I sink, I'm taking time to shift weight from my arm, my feet, into my hip. And the more I sit, the more comfortable I get. And I'm noticing as well Catherine's breath, how it feels in terms of what I'm sitting on. These are the moments of pause that are so precious because it gives both giver and receiver an opportunity to drop in, to relax more deeply. And it's often at these points when I'm giving a treatment that I feel like my receiver stops talking and that we just have a genuine moment, probably a moment of appreciation. It's a nice soft hand at the sternum. And I feel Catherine's pulse. I could stay here for several minutes, no problem. Especially if somebody needs it like me, I could use this for like 5 to 10 minutes. As I come out, I use the same patience that I used coming in. I slowly come out, and I'm keeping contact with Catherine the whole time. So my straight arm that I'm using as leverage to shift my body weight is in touch with her thigh. I step back. I often like to just brush along the leg as the blood flows back through the leg. And then I keep her foot more or less in the same position as I lift her knee back to vertical. And so we've done a lot of hip opening. Now we want to do a counter pose. So I'll bring my knee just outside her hip and slightly further back so that there's some space between my body and her body. I just start to notice and appreciate again her flexibility. So Catherine's hip doesn't come off the ground until here. So she's got a wide range. Some people, you'll see the hip lifting from here as soon as you push. So from there, I'll notice her range, and then I'll bring her back to a neutral position, use the palm of my hand, find her outer hip, right at the top of the thigh where the thigh meets the hip, and there is this shape that's like a boomerang. I can literally put my hand around it like that. I'm going to use a flat palm and sink the heel of my hand right there into that outer hip juncture. And as I sink, I put 80% of my weight into this hand. Hi. Lock, and 20% of my hand into the 20% of my weight into the hand that's on the knee. And then maybe, in this case, I'll add more and more. And it's like I'm stretching the thigh. It's like I'm trying to bend the thigh bone. For people who have instability in the SI joint, I found that this technique feels really wonderful for them because it's keeping their hip locked while stretching the outer hip, the piriformis, the IT band, all these strong muscle groups and tendons that stabilize the hip. So that's super nice. Another nice thing to do from this position, since she's already exposed her thigh, is I can palm along the outer thigh, like so. I'm gently pulling back with my top hand and keeping my bottom hand locked, like so. So far, so good. What's next? Probably calf rolling. Yep. So there's a lot of wonderful things you can do from this position. We're sort of in a place where we want to switch sides to the other leg. So normally I would do this kneeling in thunderbolt position. Since I'm keeping my left leg more straight than bent, I'm going to bring both of my legs underneath Catherine's legs. And I'm going to knead the dough with my hands. So it's creating an internal rotation of the leg. And I'm using the heel of my hand along the outer shin and pressing mostly down. And that is, it is naturally rolling the leg in. As I press down, it rolls the leg in and it's massaging the calf at the same time. Lovely technique. And I can continue up the outer thigh, same, but different. And since I'm in this position, it's where I was before, if you remember. So this is, for me, the beauty of the dance, is that from any position you can find some choreography that will weave back into what you had been doing earlier. So I would then switch sides. Hook the foot, step in. Lock. Once the thigh is down, palm. More support, outer hand hooks around the hip and leans, so I'm leaning this way. Leaning into where I'm applying body weight. Oops. Just like that. There we go. Coming back. Twist.
Russian dance.
Russian dance. Lock. More lock. Better. Lean forward and to the side. Just going to give you a little bonus on this side, because it's so nice. So in this position, similar. Oh no, I can't do it on this side. I can do it on the other side.
No bonus.
No bonus. Sorry. Lock, drop, pop, hot, pop. At this point, I'm just showing you that it's fun to transition from one technique to the other. If we were focusing on techniques, I would spend a few minutes just talking about this one technique and all the particulars of that technique. Sign up now for my webinar. Hot. Blood stop. Oh, too hot. Just right. Counter pose. Pose, counter pose. Fix the outer hip, then lean into your opposite hand. Good times. Possibly palm outside here. And then finally, roll out the calf. Sounds like a livestock assembly line. Roll out the calves. Okay. So we've done these techniques in supine position. Now we can get ready to flip our partner into prone position. So one of the things that I was showing at the end of the first demo is using the feet in a very fun, simple, and creative way. Like so. So we can work the same groups of muscles, essentially the IT band, the TFL, with the soles of the feet. Fantastic technique. And it's also fun, just to rock the body. So we'll do this as a transition. I'm going to take the same side arm that I want to roll Catherine to, that direction. I'm going to take that arm overhead. So I have the, what you might call the like murder mystery moment, you know, if you do the outline. I stay in touch with her, and there's a couple of different ways I can do this. So the first way I'm going to show you is pure roll, pure fun. So I'm close enough to her that I get some leverage, and I just roll her over. Another way I can do that same thing, okay, I've got the direction I'm rolling her to, her arm is overhead, so it's not going to be in the way when she rolls. How long is the video so far?
22 minutes.
Oh, good. Okay, so here's where it gets fun, as if it wasn't fun already. We've got another opportunity to feel what it's like to create a lock. So on the outer leg, if I just trace the line of the outer leg with my foot, I can come down to, say, mid-thigh, right about mid-thigh, and then I'll keep my foot there as I step back with my opposite foot and do just a little bit of traction. And I'm getting to feel how much of a twist Catherine can take before her hip starts to lift. And what I'm going to aim for is twist and a little bit of traction. The twist comes when I lower her leg towards the ground. The traction comes when I pull back towards me. So I'm going to keep her leg low, take her to a point where I can see her opposite hip is lifting, and then it's going to be swift. I lean back, and I turn her leg in as she flips into prone position. Good? And then I have her foot all ready, so I might as well just begin by walking on the hamstring here. I place my foot about mid-thigh on the back of the thigh. Are you comfortable there, Kat? Okay. And I lean into my leg. I'm shifting weight from my back leg to my front leg, and I keep my knee bent. It allows me to be more sensitive. Fantastic technique. I'll take the knee a little bit wider and we'll work the outer hip, piriformis area, also the glute. So by taking the foot in towards the midline, what this does is it pushes the top of the thigh bone out, the greater trochanter out here. So as it pushes out, I'm just noticing where it is, and I'm going to place the heel of my hand there and press down as the leg comes back. So it's like a well, it's like a pump. As I push down, automatically it presses the thigh towards the ground and the shin bone follows. So with my right hand, with my back, the hand that's further back, it's going to be following in a movement like this, like a circle. Fix, press, press. It might look like I'm pulling the foot. I'm just following the arc of the foot as it wants to move in a circle. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Good. Because if it didn't, Unfortunately, there's no time right now to explain it in another way. Okay, so this is a fantastic technique to work the range of movement of the hip. And then I'll bring the knee back towards a sort of parallel position, sort of knee outer hip width. And then right along the thigh-butt junction, that little butt crease there, I'm going to place my shin firmly down to lock that into position. I take my other hand, come underneath the knee, so I've got a good lock there, and then I keep my thigh down as I lean back and lift slightly. It's mostly a leaning back. And so it's a big stretch to the quad and the thigh, the front of the hip. Okay. That's happy. Okay. We could do the same thing on the other side. What I'm going to do is let me have you slide over to the middle. In prone position, it's quite common for people to have stiff neck syndrome because not all of us are accustomed to this position. So turn your head to the right, Catherine. It's a very simple way to turn your partner's head. Hamstring, walk, shift weight from your back foot to your front foot. I do try to keep my spine upright in this position. You can see that it's hard to do, but it's also a pretty simple technique. Andre's falling asleep over there. He'll catch the video on the replay. For this technique, start with the knee wide relative to the hip. Bring the foot in towards the opposite knee crease. Outer hip lifts. You find that point, lock it down, and pump. Pump. Pump it up. This is one of my favorites. It feels really good. And this muscle here needs it. Arnaud, my mentor, refers to this muscle, the glute, as the big lazy one. Big. In some cases, bigger than others. Okay, bring the knee back in towards the center. And then you see how I'm kneeling here? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kneel on my back leg and lean back as I lift the opposite leg. So I carefully place the soft part of my knee and my shin right at the thut, at the gluteal fold. I catch under the knee with my opposite hand. So my arm is straight. The arm that's lifting the knee or the thigh is straight. I just lean back. And as I lean back, I'm not lifting with the strength of my arm. I'm using my body weight as leverage. So good. Good for you, Kat? Mm-hmm. Okay. This is where it gets fun. As if it wasn't fun already. Very, very wonderful technique to just rock the sacrum gently and palm along the spine, just on the opposite side of the spine from where I am. So I'm using the heel of my hand, especially this little bone near your pinky, the pisiform bone, and I'm rocking and applying a generous amount of body weight.
It's very similar to the roll earlier.
Yeah, it's kind of like the calf roll, the calf kneading that we did. So I'm using this as a warm-up. You can do this technique, or you could try this very fancy technique that's coming next, right after this commercial announcement.
Your sponsor?
Yes, sponsored by Jack Chaya Nerve Touch School, Chiang Mai. We call this one the Jack Money Move. He's someone who I've studied with. He's a fantastic human being and a very talented practitioner. Knee starts wide, like we did for the outer hip pump. And my foot, this is kind of important, my foot is above Kat's knee. My foot is turned out so that the inner edge of my foot is parallel with her leg. And this is going to be my hook point. I want to be above her knee so that I get, you'll see, so that I get above her knee on this leg. So I slip my hand underneath here, catch the foot. Oh, forgot about that part. Come back. Catherine's head needs to be turned in the direction opposite of where I am. Otherwise, it would crank the neck, which clearly happened. So I get, arm can be up, yeah. So once I'm in this position, it's like, they call this jack scissors as well because the legs are sort of in a scissor shape. Once I'm in this position, it's lovely. And I do essentially a gentler version of that same technique that I did on the upper back here, just like so. Nice? Mm-hmm. Best part is coming out. Very reminiscent of the Russian dancer. I use both feet to catch her leg. And then she's here. And we're happy. That's it. That's a lot. Plenty for us to cover. Catherine, will you spin around so that your feet are facing the camera? I'm going to show a couple of things from this perspective. Okay. So when I was kneeling here on the gluteal fold, here's my arm on the knee. I lean back. You see how my arm is straight, stays straight. I lean back with my whole body. That's where I get the strength for that. And if somebody's very flexible, you could really lean back and give them a big stretch. With the jack scissors, see how I sneak my hand in underneath my own leg, same side arm and leg. I bring the knee through so that the top of her thigh, not her shin, not her knee, but the point right above the knee on her thigh is against the back of my leg. And I can let it open a little bit. Is that okay for you? Mm-hmm. Some people will find that this is a little bit too much of a twist in the lower part of the lumbar towards the sacrum, so it may not be appropriate for everyone. If it feels good, if someone's stable there, it can be a fantastic technique to essentially both stretch the front and massage along the spine near the low back, even into the hips here like that. Coming out, this is the fun part. See how I carry her leg here? Like that. Very nice. I would be remiss not to include one of the techniques that I do on nearly every client that I work on because everybody needs it. So as I follow the spine towards the neck, I'll work on the opposite side that my friend's head is turned to. And it's just outside the spine, close to where the cervical spine meets the thoracic spine. T1, T2, T3, and between the shoulder blade and the spine. And this is where a muscle runs, which is called the levator scapula. And it's a muscle that's quite deep relative to the surface of the body. And so I'm going to use a soft part of my forearm right about here. It's not the elbow tip, it's below the tip. And I'm going to nest that part right inside the spine. And my opposite hand will hold the sacrum. So this is where I give myself stability so I don't put all of my body weight in my forearm. I find the spot where I want to lean my body weight, and then I start to transfer weight from my hand on the sacrum to my forearm on the upper back. And as I lean into my forearm, I'm also leaning towards Catherine's hips. So think of it as lengthening from her neck towards her hips. I'm leaning forward with my hips, with my whole body. And then I'll use my hand on the sacrum to take the weight as I lift and replace my elbow to a different point. And then again, I place and lean. So far, so good? She likes it. Okay. It's nice to turn the head. Other side, one hand fixed on the sacrum, opposite forearm, between essentially the spine of the scapula, which is the top ridge of the scapula, between that point and the spine is in thoracic spine. Lean down and forward. And I always transfer the weight slowly from the hand that's on the sacrum to the forearm that's on the back, so that my receiver can actually be receptive. Now, all that is great. You might be like, okay, I can't find it. I'm not sure. They don't like it. It's bony. It's not good. Nice alternative. Take your palms, kind of like you were palming the feet, anything else. It's just, you want to turn your head the other way? Okay. Just palming along the tops of the shoulders towards the hips. Very nice way to kind of seal it off, as well as a good alternative if that technique's not working for you. Okay. To bring my partner back to supine, I'm going to pay attention to where her head is turned. I'm going to take the opposite arm, bring it alongside her head, so similar to what we did before. And then I take the opposite leg, the arm, and as I lean back slightly, this is similar to what Jack Scissors was doing. We have a sort of a stretching on the front side and a palming, or sort of a massage on the back side. And so I'm also noticing and appreciating where her range is, her flexibility, and I'll bring both along for the ride and turn the leg and the arm in as she lands back in supine. Okay, we're almost there. Slide to your right. Yep. You know what we should do is turn sideways. Whoop. After prone position, the neck can be a little bit unhappy sometimes. So holding the arms, there's space. Tuck your feet into the space underneath the shoulders. Be mindful as you sit back. Yeah. There we go. Safe landing. Now my feet are tucked under. I'm going to bring my feet into flexion, full flexion. This is the fish. I support under the skull, a nice firm hand under the skull. This hand, basically like a 7 or an L, comes behind the neck, and I firmly press up, and I slide my feet under the upper back, and then Catherine can lean back. This requires my feet to be flexed. Not everybody has that kind of flexibility in their feet, but if you do, this is a fantastic technique again. It's a passive way to bring the upper back into extension, which is where we don't bend. So the lower back, the neck, they bend. They do what's called extension of the spine. The thoracic spine, attached to the rib cage, does less bending, forward, back, side bending, twisting. So with the feet here, my toes are almost tucked under the shoulder blades. The balls of my feet are underneath, maybe right here, right at the bottom of the breast line. And with a lot of support under the head, I can gently move my feet a little bit from side to side. And for most people, this is a fantastic feeling. For some people, it would be too much of a back bend in the low back. But if the person experiences no pain, no uncomfortable sensation in the low back, you could stay here for several minutes and just let the upper back stretch, extend, and really it's a stretch for the front of the body.
Might they change their leg position if it's more comfortable?
Meaning?
Might they cross legs?
Oh, yeah.
Might
Yeah,
they
totally.
here?
Totally,
Yeah.
and especially for you with the sacral stuff.
Mm-hmm.
To come out, again, one hand under the head, one hand behind the neck. As I push up, I slide my feet out and catch her. So there's no point at which she's actually holding her body up. And then I often jiggle just a little bit to encourage my partner to really relax. Just like that. And here we can add any head neck techniques that you enjoy. I'm gonna make sure that we cover this one. Soft palm on the forehead, turn the head tick, tock, tick, tock. When she's turned towards me, I use my finger pads to support right behind the neck and just to the side. And I basically lean back so that this arm is the hook. And I press ever so gently through the palm of my opposite hand, just like that. I turn the head towards me, I readjust my position. And again, and I lean back. Okay. And you can do that on both sides. Tick, tock. It's actually quite gentle and quite strong at the same time. Okay, everybody's falling asleep. This has been a wonderful nap session. It's a long demo. Thank you.